In the last few months, Joseph Tsai completed the purchase of a majority stake in the Brooklyn Nets. He's been a 49% owner of the Nets since around October of 2017 and finalized the deal to take over the rest of the ownership stake from Mikhail Prokhorov in August of 2019. This is probably a really good thing for Nets fans because Prokhorov has been widely considered to be one of the worst owners in the NBA. Now, no matter where you happen to be from or who your team is, one of the most frustrating parts of being an NBA fan is when your team has an owner that just can't seem to get anything right. And that got us to thinking, who are some of the worst owners currently left standing in the NBA right now? What impact do they have on their team? And why are they considered to be the worst? This one is going to get a little bit rowdy. Let's dive in. Let's do it.
This is the Upshot podcast. We're about to break down the biggest moments in the NBA and why they matter now. This is the Upshot podcast.
All right, welcome back. This week we're going to be talking about the worst owners in the NBA. The most, specifically how we get into this is with the top five. Because we could have a lot of arguments around this and go a lot further than the top five. But the top five worst, and we're going to start from five, go down until we hit what we consider to be our number one, and then maybe we'll throw out honorable mentions. So with me today, we've got Nick Atkins, Marshall Robertson, and Joe Baltz, and we're going to dig into this. Before we get into who we really think the worst owners are, and we really dig into these individuals, I think it's important that we talk about criteria. Like, how are we establishing what makes these folks not great at what they do? Obviously, they've done something right to own an NBA team, but they're not doing some of the best things to actually make that NBA team great or even that fun to watch. So around the room, let's talk about what are some criteria that we look at that sort of sours your opinion on some of these teams.
Yeah, number one, I'm going to say win-loss record, okay? If your team's winning, most people don't.
That's a pretty good one.
Look into the cracks of what's going on. Usually, when you start tanking real hard, that's when people start looking up the chain of command a little bit and say, "Why are we tanking? What is going on here? And who can we blame? And let's blame the guy at the top."
Nice. I'm thinking along the lines of like dipshit moves. I mean, and you know the ones we're talking about. We're talking about the front office hires. We're talking about these draft picks that make no sense at all and make you look like a total dipshit.
Yeah, I look at it like these guys are billionaires, basically, and who's unwilling to spend money? I mean, like, why'd you buy a team if you're not? Yeah, why not spend money? And so why have the team and not be willing to bring in players just because you're being a tight ass with it?
Love that one.
Yeah, that's good.
Then I'll go ahead and go with fan base. How does the fan base actually feel? I mean, you can be winning and have a winning season. You can have a great franchise that packs the place out, but still just have a terrible relationship.
Rival.
Yeah, because of terrible things that you've done. So relationship with the fan base is big, and I think that goes, kind of steps off into another one, which is relationship with the city. Not just who's coming in, but how you interact with some of the people that actually aren't coming in, but are your neighbors in the city. So what else we got?
Well, to touch on relationship with the city, one of my favorite owner moves is always we're trying to get a new arena built, and it's like, maybe we'll go to Seattle if you don't play ball. You know what I mean? That's always fun. And then you've got very interesting city council meetings of people like, why are we getting taxed out of our asses for this? You're a billionaire, okay? Yep. Why are you doing this to us? That's a big one to me. Relationship with former players. We see players jumping ship a lot, especially in the current NBA, right? I would think if I was an owner, it'd be a good idea to have a good relationship with them and not say things when they left and be like, this guy's got two left feet. He's not going to go anywhere when he's on his next team. And I can guarantee we're going to win a title before X.
Absolutely. And on top of the dipshit moves we talked about in the front office hires, not only do they hire these guys, then they interfere with them. And that's my favorite part. So listen, I'm going to bring you on board. I'm going to literally give you the keys to the car, but I'm going to make sure that I run the car.
Yeah. Two things with a great owner. Willingness to spend money, and two, willingness to spend money in the right places. And two, getting out of the way.
Get the hell out of the way.
Agreed. So, in that vein, let's just get into it, and we're going to talk about, based on those criteria, who do we classify the worst of the worst in terms of owning an NBA team? And we've got five, and we're going to start from the top, and we're going to work down to who we think is the absolute worst. So, right there at number 5, who do we got?
Glenn Taylor.
Glenn Big Baby Taylor.
From the T-Wolves. Okay, so let's talk about that.
All right. Anybody want to take a wild guess as to what Glenn Taylor is worth today, August 2019? Any guesses?
Probably 50 losses next season.
That's pretty good.
Financially, what do we got?
Give me monetary.
money.
$3.1 billion. As of today, he's worth
Gracious.
$3.1
That's a
billion.
lot of
Just
cheddar.
source of wealth, I have here in quotes, printing, which is sexy, as always.
Printing money.
He was the head of, quote unquote, the Taylor Corporation, which I believe I'm going off the Wikipedia here, produces interactive print and marketing solutions. He was also a Minnesota state senator, I believe is a member
There
of the,
it is.
Yeah, I believe is a
There
member
it
of the
is.
Republican Party from 1981 to 1990. He also purchased, this is after his purchase of the Timberwolves, but he also owns the Star Tribune, which is the main newspaper
Oh,
in
yeah,
Minnesota.
yeah.
He purchased that paper in 2014 for $100 million. Ben, you got any thoughts on purchasing a newspaper? I guess maybe there's some online stuff, maybe. Right?
It's not. You want to buy Tower Records? So
Circuit City,
interesting.
right down the street,
It's
ready
beautiful,
for you.
right?
He purchased the Minnesota Timberwolves in 1994. According to Forbes, anybody want to guess what he paid for the T-Wolves in 1994?
$27.
225,000.
Oh, wow, Joe, you're way off. Ben, you got a guess?
I'm gonna go maybe. So we're 94.
1994.
I'm gonna say 150 million.
Wrong. 88.5 million. He and some partners.
Ooh.
Forbes values the franchise today at, remember, again, he paid 88.5 million then. Forbes values the franchise at today. Anybody have a guess on that? $1.3 billion.
Ooh,
Their market
not
size
bad.
in the NBA is 16th, right about there in the middle.
So we're doing something right to grow the value of the team, or at least the league's
The
doing
league
something
is-
right.
You're an NBA team.
Yeah,
Yes.
maybe it was a good investment.
Right.
Counteract that newspaper purchase thing. What do I know? Anyways, so with Glenn Taylor, there's some things that he's done that have really sort of put him,
On this list?
on this list, and he's got a very interesting background, as I think all NBA owners do. Every one of them has a really good story. What are some of the big standouts? Because this person's been in the news with some stuff. So what do we got?
Yeah, I think we're going to find out that a lot of these guys have made some really savvy business decisions along the way and then made some total boner moves otherwise. So here's a handful of them for Glenn Taylor. So he has a really terrible, and we touched on this in our characteristics that we're looking at. He has really terrible relationships with his players.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember back in the day when Kevin Love was the star there, which he was a huge
He's still the
star
first
in
son of Minnesota. I
Oh,
mean,
he's-
you think T-Wolves,
he was so loved.
Yeah.
I mean, 20 and 10 every single night.
Yeah.
So solid. Well, of course, Glenn Taylor, on Kevin Love's way out, decides to call him out. He's had some serious issues with KG over the years, mainly about KG's relationship with Flip Saunders.
Flip, yeah.
There's some deep conversations there, and we'll make sure to tag some articles.
So Caleb specifically, because I just adore, and I've said this before.
You're all over his gram.
I'm all over his Instagram. Caleb, it's great. So let's dig into some of the stuff that went down with Kevin Love.
Yeah, so when Kevin goes to, I guess, what it would have been Cleveland, right?
Yes.
Whenever he shoots
Yeah.
over to Cleveland,
Yeah.
this is again. He's actually Caleb actually drafted by Memphis. I know we're all proud of that because clearly he didn't play with us, but
Womp womp.
but especially when Caleb was there, I know Joe will appreciate this. He was just double machine
Absolutely.
every single night.
yeah.
One of the, I mean, and again, kind of in the mode of Garnett of like this is maybe the second son of Minnesota, right? Like we've got our guy. We're really happy we got our guy. Ends up going to Cleveland. This is what our boy Glenn says whenever he leaves. Quote, I question Kevin if this is going to be the best deal for him because I think he's going to be the third player on a team. I don't think he's going to get a lot of credit if they do really well. I think he'll get the blame if they don't do well. He's going to have to learn how to handle that. I think he's
Sick.
around. Yeah, actually, that may be prescient, but again, I think he's quote. I think he's around a couple guys that are awful good. Now, I'm not saying that Kevin's not good, but I think where maybe he got away with some stuff, not playing defense on our team. I'm not sure how that's going to work in Cleveland. So I would guess they're going to ask him to play more defense, and then that should be it. And he just ends the quote. He ends it with Andy's foul prone. End quote.
So basically,
And then I saw a stat after
Guy
that.
doesn't play defense.
I saw a
don't- yeah.
stat after that. He averaged 1.9 fouls per game.
Yeah, and he's foul,
foul
prone.
prone.
Well, I'd be foul prone if I was dying by myself in Minnesota too, while people
That's
were
true.
driving around my teammates. You can't draft.
So basically, he got his feelings hurt, and then he went to the press and
Hell hath no
did-
fury
yeah.
like a scorned Glenn.
That's rough. So we have a string of things basically with
Absolutely. And it extends to front office. It extends to coaches, Tom Thibodeau, Flip Saunders, which was really the basis of his issues with Kevin Garnett, because Kevin Garnett felt like he was Flip Saunders was never given the respect that he deserved.
KG comes out in October of 18 again, first son, right? He says, this is when Jimmy Butler was leaving. He says, I totally understand Butler. This is KG talking. I totally get it. And he's dealing with Glenn, who doesn't know expletive about basketball. Garnett said on the live, he knows how to make money, but he don't know anything about basketball. I wouldn't say that he's the best basketball mind.
That's
I wonder
great.
if any of that was printed in the Tribune.
I'm
or if
sure.
this was
I'm sure it
Oh,
made
good question.
I don't know. He who controls the news. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, when I think Minnesota T-Wolves, right? I think Kevin Garnett and I think Kevin Love.
That's right.
Okay. I'm certainly not and now I may be thinking Karl Anthony Towns, but I mean I'm looking at my watch. I'm sure he's asking to go
Yeah.
here pretty soon unless things turn around. And so, terrible relationships with the two franchise's best players in the last 20, 30 years.
And you got to think, being in Minnesota, it's hard. It's sort of the small market situation we talk about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of hard to keep great players, and when you've got an owner that is doing this to the great players that were there, it's not exactly the thing that invites you to come play there and want to put yourself.
Well, the
out
bad
there.
part is it just starts with bad relationships. Then you get into the draft picks.
Wow, the draft.
So his history of the draft is not so solid.
Hang on,
Subpar.
let me get my Pepto out to listen to this next.
Oh, it's
bit.
gonna be
This
good.
makes me sick.
So 2009, which historically was one of the best drafts of all time.
a monster.
Really, really great draft.
Oh, his sheep.
So when Minnesota grabs, we'll take that one to the side. 2009, we will focus on the fact that Minnesota had the 5th and 6th picks in that draft, in a historically great draft. What did they do with them? Ricky Rubio, and Johnny Flynn. Now on the surface, you're like, okay, Ricky Rubio has turned out into a decent career. Okay, I can at least let that one slide a little bit. The Johnny Flynn one is the one that gets me. You know why? It's because he played point guard, which is the same position Ricky Rubio plays.
Yes, and also the next guy it's Ricky Rubio, Johnny Flynn, and then the next guy taken is Stephen Curry.
Oh yeah, he's not bad.
We got a twofer and we boned it twice with one of the best players in the NBA coming up next.
And here's a couple other guys who were still waiting around at that time too: DeMar DeRozan and Drew Holiday. Pretty sure they would have taken either one of those guys at that point. But that just begins it. So in 2011, he does it again. He's got the 2nd pick and he takes Derek Williams. Who's left on that board? Klay Thompson, Kemba Walker, and Kawhi Leonard.
My word.
That's pretty rough.
Yeah.
That's terrible. So, getting into this, there's a bunch of stuff to pick from that is bad. What do you think that, like, if we can just distill this down to like what causes this? What do you think is Glenn's fatal flaw over in Minnesota?
I think it's disloyalty, man. It's the relationships with his players, his coaches, his front office people, and the fact that he's really willing to just run that bus right over them the minute they get out of town.
I think it's harder to swallow as an actual Minnesota fan. I mean, like, I'm not a fan, and you just reading that draft list makes me sick, So, like, I mean, imagine if you're living there and having to swallow those poor choices. It's easier
it's
on the
terrible.
outside. So I think maybe just overall as a fan, you're hating the decision making in those draft picks.
And also, look, if you're dealing with former players, right? If KG's traded to Boston, right, and K Love is traded to Cleveland, and you're getting back the Wiggins pick, which, oof,
Good one.
okay, but we'll see. Okay, look, you clearly your front office agreed to those trades, right? What good does it do to talk smack about players on their way? Think about it. What good does that do? Why would you come out and say
It's only
and he's foul prone?
It's only ego.
He's
It's
foul prone.
literally
It's straight
selfish
ego,
ego.
and
There's
it's nobody
no-
in the office to say, "Hey, Glenn, you
And I feel
can't
like we're gonna
do that."
We're gonna see that recurring theme, I think, throughout this pod.
Exactly.
100%. And an NBA team is driven by season ticket sales, and there's only so many drafts you can go through like that. Where in a small market, because a small market is driven by the draft.
Doesn't foster a lot of
The
confidence.
And-
Seattle Timberwolves.
And that's you never know. You never know. So, anyways, that's the tough part is you start digging into what your fans expect when you've done that several years in a row, and we hit a whole new level of things. So this one's tough for me.
This one hurts.
and it hurts because this is someone that we all absolutely love, unless you were a Knicks fan during that period. But Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan with the Charlotte Hornets.
Number 4.
It's amazing. Number
Well,
4.
Here's the thing about Michael Jordan. He made his money the old-fashioned way. He was the best basketball player of all time. I think in this room we all agree on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Anyone want to take a shot at what Mike's worth today? 2019 Michael Jordan net worth. Anyone?
Just a personal or like the team worth?
No, personal worth.
Gosh, it's got to be
over 100 billion for sure. It's got to be
Wrong.
No.
100 million. 1.9 billion is where he's at. He's sitting at 1.9 billion.
Oh, that's what I meant. Yeah, sorry.
I have here source of wealth. Would anyone like to talk about that?
Shoes?
If you do, I'm going to hit you in the head with a tack hammer because where have you been for the last 20
Shoes?
years? Shoes is big. He made $90 million with the Bulls over his career. I thought that was interesting. I think
Wow.
the last couple years he was upwards of 60-something billion. But look,
I was going to say baseball.
or
but
million.
The
excuse
Bear-
me.
How much did he make with the
The
Wizards?
Barons really
Oh,
loaded
they
the
were fantastic.
pockets.
That double line
Yeah.
for sure. In 2010, he purchases the Charlotte at the time Bobcats, and of course now they're the Hornets. This is crazy for me. In 2010, for $275 million.
That is crazy.
There's a lot of talk about, the owners really and the commissioner at the time. And I don't really blame him. It's good for the league for Michael Jordan to own a team. Frankly, he's the best player that's ever lived. And you want players to know that if you do really well, that perhaps you could buy a team,
All
right?
right, well, let's just lay it down. Do you go to a game because you're going to see Michael Jordan there as the owner? Yeah,
I might.
I would.
Yeah.
I would literally
Just
go
to get a glimpse?
Yeah, 100%.
Honestly, if I can go to a Knicks game and see James Dolan, I'm all about it. I'll pay whatever he pays. Okay, Forbes values the franchise today, the Charlotte Hornets franchise today at $1.3 billion. That's kind of, MJ's worth more than that. Their market size is 23rd in the market.
Interesting.
That means just about every team's worth $1 billion at this point. That's pretty
Excellent
phenomenal
point,
for
Joe.
the
I think we
league.
talked about this. I don't think a team goes for less than I
Yeah.
could be wrong,
Yeah.
but if the market goes down, but if you're selling a team for less than $1 billion now, good for that's a
So,
bad move.
Yeah.
so the basketball fans, this is probably going to be our best known owner. If you don't know a lot
Absolutely,
about
yeah.
owners,
Sure. Sure.
Takes
But-
less background on Michael.
But
Yeah.
there's some
He
problems
didn't make
here.
his high school team right away. Is that correct?
Oh,
I found
that's
that in my research. He also did some films. Continue.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So with Michael, there's so many things about Michael that I love, but when you put him in the position of being an owner, there's so many things not to love. And so what do we got?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously he was in basketball operations beginning in 2006, but he took ownership of the team in 2010. Since that time, they have had 11 lottery picks. Any idea how many All-Stars out of those lottery picks they've ended up with?
I'm gonna say Kimba's got to be in there, right?
Kimba's
So
in there.
one.
Kimba's
So-
in there.
and
Uno?
Last time,
Can you hear
I
anything
checked,
else?
Frank Kaminsky didn't make an All-Star team.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say one.
Yeah, one is
Joe?
the one is the
One?
correct answer.
Yeah.
100%, and it's by far and away. I mean, listen to some of these numbers or listen to some of these names. Kwame Brown, remember him?
Big fan.
Number 1 pick.
He was the LeBron that wasn't the LeBron.
Sure.
That's right. Adam Morrison. Anybody remember Adam Morrison? He was going to be the savior.
He was
Number 3.
the Return of the Mac guy.
That's
Did I say
right.
Return of the Mac. Oh no, it was a
that's
different
Mark
one.
Morrison.
Okay,
Now,
my bad.
with Adam Morrison, did you at the time? Would you have felt good about taking him? Because
I did. Yeah.
he was a Gonzaga guy,
Yeah.
and Gonzaga that was before Gonzaga even blew up to what Gonzaga is now. They were always perennially challenging.
we get the obvious benefit of hindsight.
I'm
but,
interested to see what coaching do. Adam Morrison at the time.
Well, here's some other ones.
Yeah, he doesn't
Oh, yeah,
he doesn't
yeah.
look like an NBA athlete to me, but
Right.
but I thought
They went deep in the tourney.
right.
Yeah.
I think what was interesting was I felt like the play was is this Larry because
Yeah.
everyone always gave Larry the you're not
yeah.
athletic but he can score
Right.
so many ways and that's what Morrison looked like.
Sure.
So it's almost like you're chasing that guy. But I mean I would have I didn't hate on Morrison.
I remember him crying
hindsight.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue. Who else we got?
Well, listen to these names. You'll remember all these, I think. DJ Augustine, Gerald Henderson, Michael Kidd Gilchrist,
Yeah, he's still around.
Cody Zeller,
Oh,
Frank
Still around.
Kaminsky, and a guy named Malik Monk.
And
all these guys are still floating around.
These are
Yeah.
all lottery picks.
These are
not
all lottery
picks.
picks.
Lottery picks.
Lottery picks, and they all look like whiffs.
I hate it for
They
Malik
really do.
because Malik's from our area. Actually, I
Yeah.
think Malik, but they're a terrible team. And with Frank Kaminsky too. I mean, we're seeing a bit of a trend there where these guys had some pretty deep, interesting Final Four runs. right?
Absolutely.
How does that translate
Yeah,
so
I
far?
don't
It's
know.
not looking too great.
I don't know. Well, so here's another nice telltale piece: 7 coaches in 15 years. Always a recipe for disaster. Am I right?
Yeah.
So a lot of this information came from a 2012 article that was done in the Bleacher Report by Connor Boyd. You can go check that out on BleacherReport.com.
So Connor
really,
was
really
calling
good
him out in
article.
2012.
We will,
2012.
Things have not been going great.
We'll
Yeah,
link to that in the show notes, too.
7 years ago, he was calling him out. So
And I gotta bring-
what's happened since then?
I got to bring this up too. The most recent one. Do you have anything else that leading up to
No,
that?
that's all the big stuff.
So the most recent one that shocks me, because we've talked quite a bit in prior pods about free agency and how do you handle big name free agents that probably aren't coming back, right? And so this past year, Kemba, who has an amazing year, he gets third team. I think it was third team
Yes.
All NBA, so he opens himself up for a supermax. And look, it doesn't look like he's coming back to Charlotte. He says that he'd be interested in doing it, right? Two things. They don't offer him the supermax. They offer him about 185.
So weird.
Yeah, so that's odd. And two,
And to be clear, was that not like $60 million less than what he could have
Yeah.
made for a
Oh,
max
yeah,
contract?
yeah,
Not,
right.
not
Yeah.
like on the cusp. Not
Right.
like, well, we want to put talent around you, but like, well, you're probably leaving.
and here's my issue with that, right? So like, if you can't do it, right? If you know that you can't give him the supermax for one or two reasons. If we give him the supermax, we're a small market. We can't get anybody else to come play here, right? And we are not the best at drafting because of what Marshall just said,
Right.
And Connor back in 2012, who's could see it then. But if you're looking at your team and you're saying we're going to lose this guy one way or the other, A, we're not paying him, right?
Right.
B, he
That's
may
your
not
choice.
sign with us,
Yes.
right? You're coming up on the All-Star break. Trade him.
Absolutely.
Trade.
Yes.
Get something for him. How many times in the last 6 months have we seen that, hey, if you're losing an asset, go get more assets. Go get picks.
Absolutely.
Go get something
There's no
else.
argument the other way. We're not looking at a team that you think has a chance to make a run. You're
Yeah.
not looking at a loyalty thing because loyalty would have paid him. There's not one argument I've heard.
And
And
I-
humor
yes.
me. What's the argument of
Oh, I'm gonna give you a
hanging
great
on
one.
to let him go?
I'm going to give you
Yeah.
a great one. Kevin O'Connor from The Ringer, I heard him say this, and he at the time he said, "Look, I hope that this isn't true," and I'm with him. Where was the All-Star game this past year? Charlotte.
Okay.
Thank goodness.
You would certainly hope, right, that you don't. That's a great guess. You would certainly hope that you don't not make the move because you need your all-star to play. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. You can't do that, right? But there are some rumblings out there that
surely
You're,
not.
you're
Well-
afraid of not selling out the All-Star game?
Oh, man.
You're gonna be, or also, yeah, well, my fans are going to. Who cares, right? You've got one job to do, and if you're MJ, look, we know that he's got his hands in the pie. Okay, you got one job to do. If I'm going to protect my franchise, and we're not going to build around Kemba, and I know I'm not because we didn't offer him the supermax. Okay, you've got to go get other assets.
Oh, see, yeah, you got to trade.
Yeah,
and it's
you've
big.
got to.
So, this is years. And as we said, there's articles dating way back to being like, hey, something's wrong here. In 2019, what do we have at this point? So, 2019, 2020 season, it's probably not going to be great there because Jordan's in place. So, fatal flaw, Michael Jordan, greatest NBA player all the time. You could argue one way or the other, but he's up there in the argument. However, he's probably not going to go down as the GOAT when it comes to owners. Why not?
You just named it because he's Michael Jordan.
He's Michael Jordan.
That's the answer. I mean, he gets a pass from everybody because he's the best player of all time. But his decisions over the years have been less than good.
Can I ask you guys a question? If Michael Jordan owns the team that we root for, the Memphis Grizzlies, how do you feel if we're
Real bad.
Yeah, and you don't give
Real
him,
bad.
Do you give him a pass? I mean, I'm trying.
No,
I mean, look,
of course not.
How if I'm a Charlotte Hornets fan, how am I supposed to feel about? Yeah, he's Michael Jordan, but we're terrible.
Yeah, no, I can't do it.
It's pretty rough. It's pretty rough. So let's keep moving. Number three.
Number 3.
Who you got?
It's actually funny that this guy is right below Mike.
That is weird.
Jerry Reinsdorf, the Chicago Bulls.
Look at that.
A little background on Jerry. Anybody want to take a guess? Again, this is the Chicago Bulls. How much is Jerry Reinsdorf worth? Just ballpark himself. Anybody? $1.6 billion.
Say it's gonna hit the billion.
This was certainly for me. You look at diving in, and I just could not have been any less interested. Source of wealth. He's a CPA and a lawyer. He was also involved in an outfit called Balcor, which worked in commercial real estate. He sold that for $102 million in 1982, which $102 million in 1982 I'm guessing
that's
pretty good.
money.
I wasn't there, but he also owns the White Sox, right? So he purchased the White Sox for $19 million in 1981. He purchased.
Hold on.
Yeah.
How much for the White Sox?
For the White Sox, $19 million in 1981.
So little.
And then he butt
That
heads
seems cheap.
with Tony La Russa quite a bit. But again, that's just what Jim
Got it.
Adkins told me. Then he purchased the Chicago Bulls for $16.2 million in 1985. I think at the time he just
Another
had
great deal.
Yeah, 56.8% or something like this, according to Forbes. But I think the total purchase price was $16.2 million. Forbes values the franchise today, the Chicago Bulls franchise today, at, anybody want to take a guess?
It's got to be up there. What do we got?
Two
Up there's
billion?
good.
$2 billion?
$2.9 billion.
Yeah.
He paid
How much?
$35.5 million for 2 franchises.
How much?
You're
how
going
much,
back in the 80s, but
I mean, yeah, but
Yeah.
So
phenomenal
so-
investments.
Let's talk about this.
That's
now
gonna
Joe's a
explain a
fan
lot.
of Jerry Reinsdorf.
How
Hey,
much-
This guy's
I'm not gonna
amazing.
lie. Literally, when we first put this together and I saw his name on there, I thought you guys were full of it. I was like, I mean, what are we hating on him for?
Oh,
I
you're
couldn't,
gonna love it.
I couldn't wait for it.
You're gonna love it.
And just piece by piece, I'm like, oh, maybe he could be higher.
You get into this and you're like savvy at business, and we did hit the Michael Jordan lottery right after we purchased the team, you know, which is sort of a big
Some
deal.
would say the Horace Grant
To be
lottery, but
clear,
continue.
being a good owner has nothing to do with making money from a fan
It's true.
standpoint.
Every one of
I
these
mean,
guys are-
no
yeah.
one cares how much the owner's profiting
It's true.
when we're talking about NBA teams. Like,
I'm sure they're
the
crying about us
The
whining
Grizzlies
when
had a
they're on
rough
their
year,
yacht.
but thank God they got some money in their pockets.
Right, exactly.
So if we get into this, this is interesting because this is a long-term deal for us. I mean, this is a very long-term owner, been there for a while.
Oh, yeah.
If you're having this same conversation mid-90s, you're like, this guy's amazing.
He's the best.
He's a winner.
He's
Yeah.
the best. And, you know, you're in a good position. However, probably, and I'm going to guess when this starts to go south. I listen, guys, I'm not hip to most of this. This is where I learn a lot from you guys. I'm going to guess that we start the downward slide maybe 96, 97. I don't know.
Could it be the year that he let Jordan, Pippen, and Phil Jackson leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's
He
around
still
that
had
time. It's
Bill
around that time.
Winnington. I mean,
That's true.
No, Luke Longley.
Luke Longley.
By the way,
I think
and
Bill
Tony
was
Kukoc.
If
working in the
someone, if
stands.
someone listening could find me a Luke Longley jersey that I could wear, like that
Oh,
would
that'd
be
be
Number
sick.
sick.
7?
That'd be sick.
No, number 7
13. He was number 13.
Kukoc was 7.
There we
Yeah.
go.
That's right.
baby.
So, anyways, back to you know what we got going on with Jerry.
Yeah, market. The only thing I'll end with, the market size is 5th. It's a giant market
Huge.
in the NBA, and we've all been around for this
I think
since
that's
Jordan
what skews
left.
the view. That's what skews the view.
Yeah.
Jordan and the fact that it's a huge market makes me feel like Jerry can't be on this list. So where are we going with this? You know?
yeah. Well, here it is.
So, what puts Jerry post 96 post 96? What puts Jerry with the Bulls in
Top
sort of
3.
this, you know, in the top 3? What do we got?
Well, they stink for one.
That's a good one.
Okay. But 2 is a history of just complete, there's no other way to put it, tight ass moves. He won't spend the money. Right? So even when you're talking about other owners in these huge markets, Genie Bus, even James Dolan, they're willing to go into the tax. They're going to spend the money to bring in
really
people.
willing.
And Chicago's a big, again, people want to play in Chicago.
Right.
Okay.
Well, it's where most of the players right now, and the players, 10 years ago even, it's where most of the players fell in love with the game of basketball because
yeah.
of one person. You're getting back into Jordan, and that's the thing. Is like if you can wear that jersey even for a year,
Yeah.
it means something.
Absolutely.
And so I think that's coming from a fan standpoint. There is, this is what I didn't realize. I didn't realize we were 5th largest market.
Oh, yeah.
That's monstrous.
That's
and
huge.
The fact that we're 5th largest market. What's the team worth? Did you say 1.9?
No, 2.9 billion.
2.9. That's not bad.
That's real
Don't get me
good.
wrong. That's, he's
not
made
bad.
he's made some money back, but still, that could be more.
Sure.
that could
Yeah.
absolutely be more. All right, so
So on top of that, he's also made some real terrible bad draft choices.
Yeah.
Now, of course, you can't put all the onus on the owner, and we have to remember that throughout this pod. But they're in charge.
But you're hiring
they're
people.
involved.
And we've been going for about 20 years now.
That's right.
Right.
That's right. So take a look at a couple of these drafts. In 2001, they take Eddie Curry. Now, granted, Eddie Curry was highly rated coming out. He was very highly rated. But at that time, they passed on Tony Parker, Zach Randolph, Gilbert Arenas, and Joe Johnson.
Yeah.
Lots of good talent there. 2006, they do it again. They draft LaMarcus Aldridge, which I did not know. I had to look back at the draft and realize that. They drafted him at number 2, but what they do, immediately traded him to Portland for a guy named Tyrus Thomas.
And Tyrus is doing what now? I can't remember.
Could be bagging groceries. Not real sure.
his heart.
Sure, he's
Tyrus,
doing better
Tyrus,
than
if
that.
you're
What are you
listening,
gonna do?
I'm sorry. Please
Look,
don't beat me up.
LaMarcus is still playing. He's doing okay.
Yeah, he's not bad. He's not bad.
Yeah.
So there's been some bad draft choices along the way, and that's just added to the convolution of okay.
It's a mismanaged team. And just to end here, there's a Peter Gammons quote. Peter Gammons is the baseball guy, but we bring this up because he owns the White Sox too, right? Peter Gammons had a quote saying, and of course this is after the fact, but and I'm paraphrasing here,
Sure.
okay? But if Jerry had the choice, he would trade all 6 of his rings to get one World Series ring for the Chicago
Oh
White
my
Sox.
gosh! Do you love hearing that as a Bulls fan?
If you're in,
that sounds
even
great.
if you're a White Sox fan and you're a Bulls fan, you're like, dude, what? Come on.
Jeez.
Yeah, we'd love to get a World Series, but that was a pretty good time.
Yeah, I mean, it made Chicago sports. You know,
You're not just talking about a dynasty. You're talking about a dynasty with
The
a guy
dynasty.
that changed the game, like
Yeah.
the icon of the game. That's,
Yeah.
Well, it changes. It completely changes your view of Chicago and sports.
Yeah.
But that's cool. Let's get Frank Thomas a ring.
Yeah, Jerry just put a stamp on the list for me. The surprise is gone.
Yeah.
If we had to pick out one fatal flaw for Jerry in Chicago, what is it?
Tight ass.
Okay.
Yeah, he's cheap,
Crazy.
and he's obviously complacent. I mean, he seems happy to be where he is. He's made his money, and he's good. He's going to ride this wave.
I can't remember the last good move that I thought, okay.
D-Rose?
Yeah, I mean, like, D-Rose,
You mean
he
pairing
drafted.
up D-Wade and Rondo in the backcourt together was a bad idea?
But what,
Is that a bad idea?
what did he do in free agency where you thought he's changed his ways?
I'm trying to think who was the last big.
Because I'm just
Carmelo?
I'm just thinking of Marshall saying he's complacent. Like, what would change your mind on that? Like,
Not a splash
yeah,
that I could
Yeah,
think of,
exactly.
sure.
I mean, D Wade is a guy you're bringing in that's a name that's literally he could have retired 10 years ago,
Yeah.
and had a great career.
Yeah.
I mean,
let's ship him back to Miami so he can do his farewell there.
right.
Exactly.
All right, moving on. We go to number 2.
Robert Sarver,
Get to know this name.
Phoenix Suns.
Phoenix Suns.
Phoenix Suns.
Phoenix Suns.
As of this month, I've got him down as currently only worth $400 million. If we're looking at this list, it's like, geez, Rob, make a little money, right? Source of wealth, banking and real estate. Also, the only thing I wrote down because I didn't really want to get into the weeds. It
Yeah.
was pretty boring, but good for you, Rob. He purchased the Phoenix Suns for $404 million in 2004.
And that had to be a pretty good. I mean, that's a good franchise to buy at that point.
It is actually the
Yeah.
Phoenix Suns as far as the market goes. Right now, I've got them at 14th
Yeah.
size of market
Yeah, not
size.
bad.
And if you think about
That's a good price.
If you think about history, look, you got the Barkley years, which was damn good.
Absolutely.
Did they go to a finals or was it a Western Conference Finals? Maybe I think they went to a finals.
I think they played Jordan one year,
and
didn't
MJ,
they?
and MJ
Yeah.
took them down. Sure.
Yeah.
Dan Marley,
Dan
Kevin
Marley.
Thunder Dan.
Johnson.
Thunder
Gosh,
Dan.
what a
That
team!
That was a great team.
I got to be honest with you, but even then,
Danny Ainge, was
we're
he
not-
on there?
Yes.
We're
Yeah.
not talking about a huge Chicago lag here either. I mean, the Nash years were phenomenal and kind of
and
underrated.
Amari Stoudemire,
Amari Stoudemire,
Sean Marion, they were
Yeah.
changing the game.
The
man.
pick and roll came into it.
That was sick.
big
Yeah.
time.
So and look, that's what
What a
most
great
of,
owner.
That's what most that's what most of the offenses look like today. Forbes. Anybody want to take a guess at what Forbes values the franchise at today? Again, he bought it for $404 million in 2004.
I'm going to go 2.3 billion.
Marsh, you want to take a shot?
I'd probably go a little less, 1.5, something like that.
It is 1.5 billion.
Holy cow!
That's
I
that's
literally
okay.
almost said way off when you said that. And that made me look dumb,
That's
right?
1.5 billion. As
There
of
you go.
today. But again, look, the market size is bigger than I imagined. I wasn't thinking about Phoenix being a giant.
It
market,
is. It is,
but
yeah.
it's
There's
the
a lot of
14th
people
size.
in the
And so-
desert these days.
That's right.
Yeah, that's Rob. Marsh, you want to get into some bonehead moves on Rob?
Man, where do we begin? We'll make it pretty easy. Obviously, he's on the team since 2004, like Nick said. The biggest piece for him right now is it seems like he wants to move the team.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
Or is he
he's-
posturing,
or
or
like-
does he actually want to move the
Should,
team?
should that
Or
be
the
the
good
number one
players.
qualifier of a bad owner?
Yeah.
I'm trying to leave town.
Yeah, if you
That's a
Google
bad
if
idea.
you Google him right now,
Yeah.
what you're going to have come up is
Is it a Zillow?
Right.
Is it Zillow of the? It's just the arena.
It's just the arena.
You
And-
guys see that movie Major League?
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah,
that is literally
that's it.
based on Robert.
Yeah.
here.
No doubt.
Yeah, Rob's not doing a very good job there.
Yeah, so that's a bad deal. Obviously, they haven't made the playoffs since 2010. That's not obviously all his fault, but we'll give him a lot of the onus on that. He's got a terrible relationship with the city and the fans.
They hate him.
and it's very well documented. You can check in the notes on this pod. You'll be able to see the Valley of the Suns website at the end of the last year. Adam Maines wrote an article specifically about the fact that Robert Sarver just does not understand that the Phoenix Suns are not his alone. So he seems to be this kind of owner that has nothing to do with the fans. It's his team. It's all about me.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those guys. He just does not want to give control of the front office, the coaches, the players. He kind of sounds like Jerry Jones. I'm not going to lie. Joe, I know you're a Cowboys fan, but that's everything you hear
At
about
least
Jerry Jones.
Jerry calls himself the GM too.
Jerry,
Yeah, that's true.
Jerry went ahead and had a son, and then got old enough to give him the opportunity to make up for his past.
We call that a
mistakes.
pacifier.
Yes.
That's what that
And then
is.
had some
Thank you.
pictures leak online. And I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Continue.
exactly.
Go ahead. I'm
So
sorry.
those are the main ones I had. I don't know if you had any additional
Sure,
ones.
yeah. I mean, there was a very good article that came out this year. It was ESPN from, I believe it's Kevin Arnovitz. He's a staff writer with ESPN. My favorite was, again, I love these guys who have to have their fingers in the pie for one, but just his sense of humor seems like someone who is not maybe I would want to hang out with. Okay. I'll just go ahead and read. He hired, I'm going to pronounce it, I think it's McDonough, but don't hold me to that, as his general manager. It was some 4 years after that. There was a Diana Taurasi event. We all know Diana
Oh, yeah.
Taurasi.
One of the best players of all time.
That's right. At Talking Stick Resort. And there were some goats there. And so funny Rob, right?
Classic Rob.
He gets the goats and he puts them in his GM's office. The stunt, and this is what I'm reading from the article now. The stunt was both a practical joke and an inspirational message. The Suns should find a goat of their own, one who dominates like Diana Taurasi.
Nice.
The goats, however, unaware of their metaphorical connotation, that's my favorite, proceeded to defecate all over McDonough's office. So you got a GM, you hire the
Which sends
GM.
a different message.
Yeah,
That's a total different message.
The GM's kind of a reserve guy. He's doing the best he can, and every now and then you go into your nice office and you got goat shit in there. So look,
Yeah, it's cool.
He's controlling. The team has been bad for a good while now, and yeah, that's all.
I think he was going for the metaphor as the organization's been shit on for several years.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And he did a good job of that. He did a really good
He
job.
was trying to get that across.
Yeah.
He succeeded.
So, fatal flaw.
I mean, obviously, he's a do-it-myself guy. I want to do it all by myself. But he also seems to have no boundaries. So there's a story that floats out there, too, about the Grant Hill days. So obviously, we talk about the legends that have gone through Phoenix, and there have been so many of them. But Grant Hill is a great, great player that spent some serious time in Phoenix. Well, apparently there's a story out there that he was guarding Vince Carter one night and was just getting owned, which back in the day, Vince Carter was owning everybody in the league.
Tough to guard.
And Grant Hill was one of the best defenders of all time. So you know what? Let's give him a pass. Well, not Robert Sarver. Comes in the locker room during halftime, calls out Grant Hill in front of the entire team, and just completely berates him. So to me, it just seems like he doesn't have any boundaries. Again, kind of like the Cleveland Indians owner in Major League. I mean,
Right.
literally just show up in your locker room, no big deal.
Do you think
Call
they've
out.
got one of those stand-up things like they have?
Oh,
in Major
yeah, peel
League
the
where
pieces
they
off?
rip
Patch
off? No, it
clothes.
would-
Yeah, I like
That's
it.
the grossest thing I've heard.
It
in the
would
whole
not work.
cast.
I like it.
Sorry, Rob.
I think that says a lot, though. I mean, you're talking about doing that to Grant Hill because I think of Grant
It's
as
like
so
one of the
much
most
more than a
respected
player.
players
Yeah.
ever, yeah.
Like he seems like an ambassador of the game. That I lose a lot of respect for Mr. Robert there.
Yeah, agreed. So we've been through 4. It's who's the number
Anybody
one?
want to take a wild
I was
guess at
gonna
what
say,
number one is?
this-
We couldn't even hold it. We had to
let's-
mention him several times
I
already.
almost feel bad because this guy has been piled on so much, but he so much deserves. It's James.
He's a
Dolan.
lightning rod.
It's James Dolan.
The
No.
guesswork is what decade was James Dolan not the worst owner? I mean, how far back do we got to go? Hit us with it.
Sure.
What I absolutely love is what you're about to say.
Sure.
Which is, as bad as this situation is, we're still in a position where this team is valued.
New York Knicks are the most profitable franchise in basketball.
$4 billion according to Forbes.
Yeah, $4 billion. As of August 2019, Mr. Dolan himself, James, anybody want to guess? $1.5 billion is what he's worth.
Not bad.
His source of wealth, had a lot of fun with this one. Number one, his band, JD and the Straight Shot. I think we're all familiar. I don't even have to go into it there. You guys heard Wonderwall? Second, he's the son of Charles Dolan. Okay, I'm not putting that in there tongue in cheek. His son Charles Dolan created what's called, I think it was Cablevision. He's a cable TV pioneer.
All right.
That's where he made a lot of his money. He started working with his dad. He was made CEO of Cablevision in 1995. They were purchased the Knicks, and this was part of something. The purchase group was Madison Square Garden Company. Purchased the Knicks in 1997. 1997. Anybody want to guess what the Knicks were going for in 1997? 1997.
800 million.
Too high.
I don't know. I mean, I figured they'd have to be pretty valuable.
400.
1997. A little too high.
Wow.
Really?
Marsh, you got
going
anything?
200?
300 million. Man, you guys
Yikes.
stink.
Well, man.
I totally would have guessed 300 million and not had it written on my pen. Forbes values the franchise today, like Marshall said, for $4 billion. And that does not include, because there have been
I
rumblings.
believe that though. That's
It's crazy.
I believe that 100%.
Bill Simmons came out earlier this year, and there was Dolan really gave him flack about it. But he said that Dolan was accepting, or he wouldn't be doing his due diligence for the shareholders if he wasn't looking at accepting offers. But you've got the franchise itself, right? But he also owns Madison Square Garden. And if you're purchasing that team, let me tell you something. If we were in the position to purchase that team, I don't have any interest in owning the Knicks if James Dolan still owns Madison Square Garden.
Absolutely.
And so, are you looking at $5 billion? Are you looking at $6 billion?
Because assume he sells the team, he still needs to have that opening slot for the Eagles.
Exactly. JD's in the
He
straight
needs to have
shot.
that.
Just to give a perspective of just the fandom of the Knicks is I'm walking in New York on a vacation.
Yeah.
Okay, the Knicks are awful.
Yeah.
It's literally they're out of the playoff race, and I'm thinking maybe I'll hit this game up tonight. And the cheapest seat I could find to
Yep.
get into the game was 125 plus.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and
Wow.
maybe that's the norm at a lot of cities outside of Memphis. That's my perspective.
You're up there
But
sitting with
125
Yeah.
to get into the Madison Square Garden to watch the game, and a terrible product. It's not like we were going to watch them play Cleveland
Right.
with LeBron James there that night.
So,
So
so at what point is there some sort of scoreboard up there that tells you you're doing the wrong thing? For most people, they have well, I'm not making money, so we must be doing the wrong thing. We need to change courses. And that's what's so interesting, I think, about this story is with James Dolan. I mean, with the Knicks, it's like there's not much out there to tell you that, like, hey, you need to do something different. Like,
well, of course, I think a fan tried, right? And that
Well,
didn't
I'm
work
telling
out.
you, there's a lot out there telling you all the things he's done wrong. And let me just begin this long
Dive
list.
on it.
He's had 13 coaches in 18 seasons. We talked about this before, what that means. It means the opposite of success.
Something's not going well.
Absolutely terrible. Also, they have the worst record in the 21st century, despite paying more luxury tax than any other franchise.
He'll
We
go
talked-
into the tax.
He'll
See,
pay the money.
That's the thing. It's not like he's incredibly cheap. Now, look, they don't have any shortage of cash around
Yeah.
there, but at least he's not. We're not in a
he's
Reinsdorf
twisted,
situation.
He's twisted every coaching hire with like bringing big name.
Oh, yeah.
right. Like he had D'Antoni, and then he's like, oh, I got the young guy that was the great player, and he's young. I mean,
Yep.
like he's tried every avenue.
Fish.
really has.
Yeah,
It's Fish, right?
Brought in
Yeah, yeah,
Fisher.
yeah.
I mean,
and none of it's worked.
yeah, like
None of it.
And now we got Fizdale, who we know.
Jeff,
We love Fizdale.
Wasn't Jeff Hornacek one of them?
I think Hornacek was in there.
I wouldn't surprise
He was
me.
out in Phoenix, and I think he was there for a cup of
13
coffee.
I may have
18 seasons.
misspoken. I swear he brought him in
I
early.
think you're right. I think you're right.
If you could name all 13 coaches in 18 seasons, I would like to hear from you.
I don't want to be that guy. If I knew him, I would
Because
pretend I
that is
didn't.
just terrible.
that's rough.
But that's just the beginning. So here's just a short list of what our man Jimmy Dolan has done along the way. So I mean, you look back in 2007. The majority of us probably remembered. If you don't, you can look it up. 2007, they had a giant sexual harassment case involving Isaiah Thomas. Things did not end up well there. That really set the franchise back a little bit.
Yep.
Along the way, they had several issues with the whole Carmelo Anthony situation. They bring in Carmelo. It just goes up and down. It's absolutely terrible. Actually, if you check out Bloomberg, there's an article on Bloomberg about literally ask whether or not James Dolan is the worst owner, not only in the NBA, but in sports.
It's a race between him and Dan Snyder for the Redskins.
Oh, I
in my opinion.
absolutely
Yeah.
believe it. If you check out that article on Bloomberg, it's
We'll link to
really,
it.
really expansive, and it's got a lot of information about all the different terrible things he's done along the way. Anybody remember this? Remember the time he threw out Charles Oakley,
Oh,
Knicks
my gosh,
legend?
yes.
He's hanging out on the sidelines at a game, and he throws him out.
I think the talent that James Dolan actually has, besides making a lot of money
And singing.
we'll get to that. The talent that he has is he's very good at being captured on social media. Doing
Oh, he's
dumb
so
things.
good at it. Yeah. Speaking of that, do you remember the time? There's literally a YouTube article. We will make sure we share this with you in case you've never seen this. There's a fan that yells for him to sell the team as he's
this
walking
past
up.
year.
It's just this past year. He stops and says, "Oh, you want me to sell the team? Okay, you're banned for life." And he literally banned that fan from ever coming to another event in Madison Square Garden because he suggested that he sell the team.
And this is the thing.
Love it.
Yeah, this is the thing that drives me, I think, the most crazy about Dolan. And look, all you can do whenever you're trying to make a judgment of someone's character is to look at all the facts surrounding it, right? So when I look at James Dolan, look, we have microcosms of these guys, at least in my opinion, in our lives. It doesn't matter if you're worth $4 billion or you're worth $4, okay? He was born into his money. Okay, it's not a big deal. That's fine. A lot of people are born into their money. He got this gig. He ends up getting, he's running the Knicks, and he's got Madison Square Garden. Look, I'm not telling tales out of school here. When you go see a show, I've read some reviews of some of the shows of JD and the Straight Shot, and also one of those reviews came from Draft Night. By the way, he played a show during the NBA draft a few years ago. Okay, he was not there. He was in the middle of one of his shows, and. Look, it's okay. He's surrounded himself with good musicians, but he's not a particularly good front man. And, of course, he's made himself the front man, okay? Number one. Number two, he cannot take criticism, which if you're going to operate a franchise, and if you're going to operate a franchise in New York City, you better be able to take criticism. He bans reporters. All of the players there have to go through, at least it's been rumored that they have to go through the media training, right? He throws a guy out in the stands who literally, the guy says, sell the team. That guy paid a ticket to be there, and the team sucks, okay? And so he can't take criticism. And he's petulant in my mind. Okay, it's somebody that nobody has the balls to say you can't do this, and he's not allowing someone to tell him you can't do this.
And the crazy part is he still somehow through all that has this crazy misplaced confidence. You remember coming into the 2019 free agency season. He literally vowed that they were going to bring
it's going to be a big offseason.
A huge amount of free agents. We're talking names like Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving. They were supposed to be in Madison Square Garden.
What he meant was 11 power forwards.
Yes. What I mean is Julius Randle, Bobby Portis, and some scratch.
I don't think he can be looked at like either. Whenever I look at his draft picks over this time, so you're bad. I mean, he's been bad for a long time, so he's had lottery picks. Yeah. Okay, so what has he done with them? And I think that, I mean, there's going to be swings and misses, but I think what sticks out to me the most is he gets hammered, bad, and then he gets Kristoff. And I'm like, he got hammered when he drafted him. He had to take the heat for drafting him.
Yeah, that was a hugely unpopular decision.
For the first time in Dolan history, it's like,
he looked smart.
Did it.
Yeah.
You did it. You knew the guy.
It was a Phil Jackson move, actually.
Right.
Too. Yeah,
it was.
But look, here's the thing. Like, you get Kristaps, and then you trade Kristaps, and it was literally the quote at the time was, you traded him for cap space. That's what you traded him for.
Absolutely.
You traded him for cap space. And why do you need that cap space?
For this free agency season.
Because we're going to get
forwards.
Durant and Irving, right? But yeah, you end up getting 11 power forwards that you signed to 2-year deals. It's a comedy of errors. And in this NBA, look, when you're out in LA, it's one of those things where the Lakers are going to control the story. Okay, now we'll see if the Clippers are able to overtake that, but Brooklyn's hot now, and Brooklyn's the fun team.
Yeah, they're the hot, flashy team,
and nobody wants to come play for James Dolan.
Yep.
Right.
It's rough. And so fatal flaw. I think we.
You touched on it. I mean, he's childish. He's egotistical. He's a power trip guy. Yeah, I mean,
JD
it's
and
all
the
the
straight
above.
shot. I'm just kidding. I'm sure they're good.
It's beautiful. Go and go to Spotify right now and download tunes from.
Hey,
JD and the
can
Straight
you
Shot.
say you opened for the Eagles? That's right.
No, that's exactly. So honorable mentions. That's our 5 with Mr. Dolan taking number 1. But let's go through around the room. Who are our honorable mentions for worst owner that did not make the list?
You want to just pick one?
I got one. I'm going Dan Gilbert.
Give it to us.
I think that the only reason he's even had any success at all is because of LeBron. And I think no one's embarrassed themselves more with having to eat their own words with LeBron coming back and then literally embarrassing himself again the second time. And I feel like it's just garbage, one thing after the other. I mean, I can't think of one positive thing I want to say about Dan. That doesn't mean that he hasn't done some good things. Yeah. I'm just saying from a fan's perspective, someone outside the Cleveland area, I think, he underwhelms me for the talent that he could have put around LeBron, and he could have had a legacy there, much like a Jordan, 6 championship type thing. And instead they have one.
How much?
I was going
ahead.
to say, henceforth, the fatal flaw. He's lucky. Since 2003, 4 times they've had the number 1 pick.
Oh, gosh.
4 times.
Well,
and we're still talking about one title.
There's people that are lucky that have capitalized. They rode the wave. And then there's people that got lucky, hit the top of the wave, and then drowned.
Just real quick, because you can't bring up Dan Gilbert without bringing up his Comic Sans letter whenever LeBron left to go to Miami.
Man.
I just want to read my favorite quote from it.
Best.
He says, and I quote,
this is just
It's
fantastic.
this is all caps, so it's Comic Sans for one, but then this is all caps in there. I personally guarantee that the Cleveland Cavaliers will win an NBA championship before the self-titled former, quote, king wins one. Yeah. Number 1, that was not true.
Yes.
Number 2,
It took the king coming back
he
to
came
win
back,
one.
and I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall for that relationship at that time, but he came back, they win one, and now, Dan, good luck, because that ain't you're not getting that lucky again.
Nope.
Right. What do you got, Marshall?
I mean, I got to go Jeannie Buss, and it may not be her fault. She was grandfathered into this whole deal, so maybe it's not her deal. But her dad died back in 2013. She gets into a lengthy battle for ownership of the team against her brother since she took over. Worst winning percentage in the NBA. Yeah. Had some serious, deep relationship issues. Hello, Phil Jackson. How are you? issues with Magic Johnson, Rob Pelinka over the years. The minority owners are dissatisfied. It just seems like she lets relationships play a part in business, and obviously we all know that doesn't go very far. And she seems to have a lot of people in her ear. Which is a
It's
good
not
thing.
been the same there since.
I mean,
since then, yeah.
Magic literally resigned in the media, right?
Please,
Yeah.
someone ask me, being Magic, if I'm going to be here. Just someone throw that to me real quick.
Are you going to be?
I'm not gonna be here.
And it was just a comedy of errors at the end of this last season. Watching,
But did
and
it work out?
We'll
They
see.
got him.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we'll
that's
see.
what
How
I'm saying.
come? Can I throw this
She's
out there?
on the list with LeBron and AD on her team, and you just brought
That's
her in.
right.
I
They
think
got
that says
two
a
of the top
lot.
10 play- yeah,
yeah,
they
that
got
says a
him.
lot.
They
I
got
think that anyone more level-headed maybe is really taking it to the
Sure.
next level.
Here's one I want to know. How come SNL has not spoofed the situation with Keenan Thompson playing Magic Johnson?
Oh,
Can we
it's
please
wonderful.
hook that up? Please.
He's wonderful. I think that the really interesting thing there is you look at what's happening in LA, and you got to know when you're in LA, it's a legacy, and anything you do is going to be under a microscope. And just the way that things have been handled a little too publicly at times. And if I have to get in, to the genie world, that's the thing. It's you have to rein things in to where you're keeping things in house a little more. There's going to be publicity. It's just the
LA.
nature of it.
Yeah.
But how do you let some of those things get that out of hand? But speaking to it, we're going to have a great, interesting season in LA
Oh,
this
there's no
year.
doubt
So,
about that.
Yeah.
Who else we got?
This is going to be the last one I can think of, and this is just planting the seeds of whenever we're working on this and we're looking at it, and then you have news come out, you're like, oh, there could be something here. Tillman Fertitta from Houston and the offseason they just had with, are we hiring back? Are we bringing back D'Antoni? We're firing his assistant coaches and also our GM, who I like the GM, but what exactly is going on there? We're getting rid of Chris Paul, but no, everything's good with Chris and James, but oh, by the way, Chris is gone now. We're bringing in Westbrook. There are seeds there of him having his hands in the pie, so to speak, again, of really being super involved and it becoming a problem.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
I agree with you. My favorite thing about this guy is that he's willing to spend money and he's not afraid to be the first to do something. So,
Sure.
whenever I look at the things he's doing, they seem outlandish and he's had a lot of success. So I think that those can go hand in hand. If he maybe can keep his hand out of the control piece, the coaching and whatnot, I think maybe it pays off for him.
I'd like to have one more last minute write-in for
Go.
James Dolan. Did we talk about him yet?
That guy from the Straight Shot?
Oh, absolutely. So, listening in, what do you think? Do you agree? Do you disagree with our top 5 picks? What do you think? Who do you think is the worst owner in the NBA right now? Go to upshotpodcast.com and tell us. We want to hear what you think. And by the way, you can also grab show notes where all of the stats that we pulled, the links that we mentioned, they're going to be there. You can go do your own research, check it out, and tell us in the comments. If you got something that we should have included, got a great article that supports or tears down what we said, make sure you post it there. Also, make sure you subscribe to the Upshot podcast on iTunes or anywhere that you happen to listen to podcast. And hey, you got something that you want to talk about or you think that we should talk about, let us know. You can do all that, of course, at upshotpodcast.com. All right, so every week we do this. We come in, we talk about the ridiculousness that is the NBA, which is one of our favorite things in the world. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope to hear more from you. We'll see you next week.
You've been listening to the Upshot NBA podcast. If you like what you heard, make sure to click the subscribe button so you can get a new Upshot episode every week.